listening to eTalkRadio, and this is ManTalk. And today we'll be discussing issues surrounding men of science. I'm your moderator, John Dre Smith, and joining us on the broadcast, we have a panel of men of the global majority. And we'll be discussing issues surrounding our size, our perceptions, and how we move from surviving to thriving in a society that doesn't necessarily fit us. All right, joining us today, we have Pierre Perez via text, and on the broadcast, we have Peter Hahn, Hosannas Jabulani, Carl Eburn, Jeremy Travis. Before we get started, I would just like to have everyone involved in the discussion to give a brief introduction to themselves and, share whatever details they are comfortable with and give a baseline for our continued discussion. We'll start with Hosannas.
Okay, my name is Hosannas Jabulani, born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, currently residing in Washington, D.C. I am a man of trans experience, a man of color, been man of size my whole entire life. Well, child of size and then man of size later. I'm a hoodoo historian, social work.
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Travis. I'm also born and raised in Chicago, still here, Chicago's finest. 45 years of age, also a man of size. Pretty much been, let's say, upsized my whole life. So I'm not new to it. I don't think any of us are. But yeah, just here to share my perspective and experience with it all.
And Carl?
I am Carl Eburn. I'm 47 years old, father of three, born and raised in Brooklyn, but somehow I live in the South in Georgia, Savannah area to be exact. And I've been fat a long time. Beyond that, I'm not that interesting of a person, I think. We'll see.
And finally, Peter.
Yes, I'm Peter Hahn, born and raised in Houston, Texas. Still reside there. Kind of a larger Asian. So yeah, I'm gonna enjoy discussing.
All right, and like I said, I'm John Dre Smith. Originally born and raised in the Mississippi Delta. Lived in New Orleans for most of my out of college life. Went to school. I went to high school and college in Mississippi. Moved to New Orleans immediately after. Now residing in Birmingham. I've been a Southerner all my life, and of course I've been a big kid since day one. And I'm looking forward to having the discussion. So one of the issues that very often is encountered in by people of science in community, especially in communities of color, is the perception and assumptions and how we are seen. And I want everybody to kind of give an idea of, how that has manifested in their particular experiences and, some of the issues that they run into and how they've coped with it. And feel free to chime in. We're not necessarily doing an order. Just want to kind of get everybody's thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times, at least as a black male, if you're of size, a lot of times you're considered to be more intimidating. And that can affect how people treat you. Some people are automatically going to see you as a threat. I know I've experienced that quite a bit. Because I'm a pretty brisk walker. So if you just see this 6-foot guy, 300+ pound dude walking down the street, looking like I'm on a mission, a lot of times people will give me a wide berth, and I don't really mean no trouble, but I notice it. I notice it a lot of times if I'm in a space with women, particularly if it's just one woman. I know recently I went to I'm moving. I had to see a new apartment. So the young lady who was showing it to me, real small, short, petite woman. I noticed she had like a keychain with mace and like brass knuckles on it. I'm like, okay, I get it. So I'm trying not to be intimidated because I'm towering over her. But outside of that, I am a larger guy. So, people take that a lot of times, especially for us with the police. If you're a smaller black dude, they give you a little bit more leeway, not very much. If you're a big dude, we've seen in a lot of the video that has been seen here recently. If it's a big guy, they're gonna put a whole lot more force on you. Even who was it there in New York? Eric Garner, Alton Sterling, Mike Brown. All these are like big guys. And who was it? Ben Stein said that Mike Brown's weapon was him being a big black man. He had nothing in his hands, but that's his weapon. That is something that is kind of difficult to contend with when you're just out and about, because it's almost like you're a monstrosity. You ain't mean nobody no trouble, just out living your life. But people are going to see you as a threat more so than large white guys, thinner black guys. It can be debilitating in a way because of that. And it's all about one's preconceived notions about what it means to be a big black dude. And I would like to see that change. It might at some point. I don't know how soon that'll be there.
Yeah.
So, Osiris, your thoughts?
Well, no, I was just listening, and one of the things that Jeremy brought up is when you're navigating spaces around women, I'm cognizant of that a lot. Sometimes I'm aware, hyper aware all the time. So if I see myself in a space and there's women, I'll immediately go the opposite way or go around. And it's something that's just kind of programmed in you after a while because of how you've been treated for so long. So, I've now, like yesterday, as a matter of fact, yesterday I was going into the store and there was like three women talking, and they were kind of blocking the sidewalk, and they kind of looked at me and they paused their conversation and looked at me, and then I just got off the sidewalk, walked all the way around just to get in the store because I just didn't want to scare them, and there's the type of things that you kind of encounter moving in spaces as a big guy.
Yeah. There's the opposite side of that. I think if you're not seen as intimidating as a big, as a large black man, or as a man of size, as a black person living in a black existence, the opposite side of that, because there is some kind of danger, and there's some kind of danger that people like to enjoy about being a large and intimidating. And so we sometimes get a pass on that. I think in some twisted way, that's a little bit of grace that we're given as large as men of size, as big dudes, and who also are black. The opposite end of that, and in my experience, and I think a lot of people can relate, a lot of big dudes can relate to this, is that you wind up being the butt of the joke. That's the opposite side of the coin. You come up, and being big, it's an easy target. You're an easy target for anybody who wants to get off a shot. It makes their day, even if you can be the kindest person, you can be the nicest person, you could be the most unassuming person, but once it's the safest space that people have where folks can still make fun of you, of your appearance, of your existence without there being any consequence. If you run up to somebody, you say something racist or you say something misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, there will be some form of communal backlash to that. But even in those communities, if you're big, if you're fat, everybody got jokes, and they're going to direct it towards you how you dress, it's always having to deal with someone's mocking of your literal existence. You could be minding your business. Someone's got a joke for you when you're big, and we've all heard them, and they're hurtful. And I don't know about now. There is a level of acceptance that's coming in. And I hope that it picks up speed over time. But I'm a kid of the 80s, born in the mid 70s, and I grew up in the 80s. Um, you just took the shot, man. Everyone gets to be a hero or whatever. Your skinnier friends get to be, whatever cool black person was at that time. But when you're a person of size, when you're a big dude, when you're, fat, whatever you want to call it, you know, uh, you only get to be bookman from Good Times and Rerun from what's happening. No matter what the situation is, you want to be Superman for Christmas, but everyone's always going to suggest Fat Albert. And it's like, you don't get that. And for me, how I dealt with it, honestly speaking, I didn't. You just keep your head down and kept pushing. I'm almost 50 years old. And you can still hear it. You can still hear the mocking. I don't think I've ever labeled people with names the way I was labeled with some. I don't walk around the corner and somebody know me from my fat guy. There's nobody that knows them from speaking to me of whatever nickname I had for them because I didn't make them. But I could go back to my old neighborhood now, or I could go back to somewhere else, and somebody's going to remember the goofy fat guy name that they gave me, not that I had for myself, or not how I saw myself. They just want to revert to that boy from 30 or 40 years ago. And, it's it sticks with you. It sticks with you. There's a lot of unresolved, things that still stab at you. And that's just it's not the fault of the young folks. It's not I don't blame any of my peers or my friends of that day for that. It hurt, yeah, but they didn't know any better because the larger society painted us a certain way. So yeah, it's not. I think we're here talking right now because none of us really dealt with it. To be fair
I
and
want to
honest.
put a pin in that perceptions thing and come back
Hmm.
to it. But I
Yeah.
also want to get Peter's thoughts because all of us have a very, very Americanized experience when it comes to this within our communities and a familiar experience within the Black community. And it'd be interesting to hear Peter's thoughts as, number one, Asian American, but also number two, growing up in the South.
Yeah. So growing up, it's like you hear about the model minority, Asian
Mm.
Americans, the model minority myth, and it kind of sticks with you. I mean, you kind of grew up with it, and even my parents bought into it. They're immigrants from China, so coming here during the 70s, pursue the American dream, and they kind of bought into that whole model minority thing. Asians got to be a certain way. Asians got to, be smart. They got to be good at math. You got to study hard. Be good at school. That kind of stuff, right? I was okay at school. And to put a even a new, we put another strike in that is that my parents, we grew up in a Chinese Christian church. And that's like a whole new level of cultural. It's like taking the Asian culture and like exemplifying it even more, because now you have religion kind of stuck in there too. Um, so it's and growing up, my parents were always worried about my weight.
Mm.
You know, um, I'm not a huge dude. I'm big, but I'm bigger than the average Asian guy. And average the model minority Asian guy is like these K-pop skinny dudes
Yeah.
who
Yes.
who
Mhm.
they got no meat. Let's just put it that way, right? And that's the ideal look and weight. And that's kind of like what they compared me to.
Mhm.
And it's like you're getting fat.
Mhm.
Like you gotta watch your weight. And I was a pretty active kid. I played basketball. I did martial arts. That was the Asian thing. And I really wasn't like fat. Um, but like I was just bigger than the average Asian guy. Even like it's funny because like when I had relatives come over from over Asia, they always would say "ni hao pang." That's the first thing that came out of their mouth, which means, "Oh, you're getting fat,"
Mhm.
or "you're fat," and it's like, "Oh, it's good to see you, Auntie." That's like the first thing that comes out of their mouth.
Bro, hey,
You know,
hey, Peter, let me tell you, family, I'm American, yes, but I
uh-huh.
was raised in my family's from the Caribbean, Guyana, Trinidad, Tobago, and Jamaica. So what you just described is literally the greeting that I would receive from they'd come in the door and they'd be like, I'm like, hey, cousin from this other place I just met. How you doing? Hola, Jeffrey Carsafat. What? Yeah, I just met you. That's the first thing you noticed about me. It's real. It's
Yeah.
real. It's
It's
It
this
is.
weird. It's this weird thing about being big that people have that they feel they can. I don't know if it's a weird. I don't know what it is, but it's this weird thing that folks feel like just once they look at you, they have the right to just say some of the most disrespectful shit you ever heard of.
Mhm.
and
Like just because I'm like, they just say it. They just walk in. Every one of us, I'm certain of it. We've only talked over Facebook. We've only talked over social media, but I can guarantee it that at
yeah.
any of our social events or whatever, when we socialize with people, you walk in the door and the first thing they say to you has something to do with your weight.
Yeah.
And it's
And,
like, who asked you?
and so one of the reasons why I wanted to juxtapose your thoughts with Peter's thoughts and with Jeremy's is the fact that I think a lot of this goes back into racial theory and into colonialism.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
the fact
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
it is a similar negative attitude across several cultures, and the only thing that they really share in common is the colonial mindset. It has to be
Mm.
examined.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and it's very interesting because both of you describe like the initial negativity coming in, like from your relatives and things like that. And I think that there's also the subculture side of it where when you grow up in a community outside of the white gaze, where like
Hmm.
your size is celebrated to an extent, but also it's treated as a clandestine thing.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's like, and that's something I wanted to ask Osanis about, because I
Hmm.
know he has experience with, growing up in a largely Black community in Chicago, as well as
Hmm.
having relatives in Mississippi. And I also
Hmm.
have the rural Mississippi experience. And it's like, there is, in addition to the usual social perception, you have this identity schism that comes along with it, because your like your invested relatives, like your colonial relatives, want to keep you skinny,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they're constantly poking fun at you for
Hmm.
any weight you gain, any rolls in your cheeks. On the other hand, you have your outgroup relatives who see feeding as an act of love.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
and you're kind of caught in the
Yeah.
middle. And I wanted, and I wanted to get everybody else's thoughts on like how that has manifested itself and how, that leads to, some of the identity issues and some of the sort of guilt associated with even indulging in food and even being outside.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know it's confusing. I will say that because, and I still struggle with it to this day because now I've taken on the role of like, okay, you're not feeling well, let me make sure I feed you with some of my family and friends, and I mean, it's a good thing. It's an act of caring, but it confuses you. Like growing up, they would always say something about my weight under the guise of they care about my health, but do you really care about my health if you don't care about my mental health? Like, because this is all one package,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like it would
Yeah.
be
Right,
that.
right.
But then I would have to sit at the table all night and I wouldn't be able to leave the table if I didn't finish a plate, even though I kept saying I was full. So it would be like those confusing things that would happen all the time. Like, I don't want this. I'm full. I don't want the rest of. No, you need to finish a plate. Okay, well, this is the same relative the other day that was telling me how much weight I got on me and I need to, slim down. So it can be confusing. It really is a confusing existence.
Absolutely. Um, it's the weirdest thing. It's they will tell you this. You'll get told this. And again, I'm from the Caribbean, so my family's from the Caribbean. So, you're sitting there and they're as big, your island kinfolk eat as much as our American kinfolk. That's
Mm-hmm.
right out the gate. Curry goat, roti, oxtail,
Mm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
coming.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll put it on the plate. But you was just calling me, and if I listen to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because I'm gonna internalize whatever fat guy thing you said, and I'll say to myself, I'm gonna try to conform. Um, when I'm in those spaces now, everybody's trying to put mountains on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I try to conform, and then they'll look at you funny if you try to. It's a weird catch 22
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because you can't escape it. It'll be
Yeah.
commented on if you load up your plate. It will be
Mm-hmm.
commented on if you leave your plate bare.
Yeah.
It's You're stuck. On another thing that John Drea mentioned, I'm a medical assistant and I'm a dialysis tech.
Mm-hmm.
And um, what I hate most, and this is colonialism writ large, is how this country approaches, health. They'll speak of it as obesity and whatever have you. The way this country approaches health, and I'm speaking from somebody on the inside, looking and who knows what they'll say. Um, it is absolutely colonial. I mean, the very metric that we measure a person's size from is built from a very racist, imperialist, colonialist.
Nazi
Um,
data collection.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, fam, listen. The entire term is it's applied to anybody who's over 200 some odd pounds, or anybody who's a certain height and is over 150 pounds. It's not just, oh, well, this person's, they might be a little overweight or this or whatever have you. You are described as morbidly obese. You know what I'm saying? It's not
Mhm.
even obese. You're morbidly obese.
Mm-hmm.
We make your existence a negative, and they never take steps to explain why that is. And they never take steps to provide resources through
Yeah.
the healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
And it only comes from the point of view of, and I'll say it like this: whoever made the BMI never accounted for somebody like Shaquille O'Neal or Serena Williams
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
or
Yep.
Lizzo,
Yep.
They
Yep.
are aberrations. And even us, where we may not be athletes like them, or we may not be moving around like how Lizzo does across the stage for 40 minutes, we would never fit the confines. I could get to my lowest possible weight, and that in 2015, my lowest weight was I was 265 pounds.
Mm.
At my lowest weight, the BMI would not be looking at me in its favor.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is a lot. There is a racial component to it. There is a colonial component to it, and it's not that the goal in our society, and I'm speaking from the healthcare field. It is not about health. It's not. I don't think it will be unless somebody changes it on a on a molecular level. It has to be torn down and rebuilt, much like almost every other structure in this country, every other system. You got to tear it down and start over again. It will, until that happens, everything we think of concerning our weight and our health and everything around that will be for us to fit into a white aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not acceptable to a white person, then it's probably not acceptable.
Yeah.
And so it tarnishes the entire approach to how we walk through this world. And a lot of the reactions that we've had negatively it's almost like internalized racism.
Mm-hmm.
You look at me this way because some white guy told you to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's some white person said it was unacceptable.
Earlier when I think it was that transition going between what John Drew was saying and Usanis was saying, and a little bit what Carl was saying as well. Peter, kind of everybody touched on an aspect of it, and it made me think of a beast of burden
Mm-hmm.
because everybody thinks that you can do all the heavy lifting that they have. I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell
Yep.
you how many people think that and I've moved a lot of people. I can Tetris the fuck out of some boxes, but people still think that I'm going to move them or, help me with this. You're a big guy. Sure I am. But that don't mean that I want to just do all the heavy lifting all the time. You're the beast of burden. You do the heavy lifting. Oh, but you're eating like a water buffalo, which is what they used to call Bookman, remember? Used to call
Mm-hmm.
them water buffalo.
Yeah, buffalo butt.
Buffalo butt. You can make the jokes to the beast of burden. The beast of burden, you got to watch out, keep him in check because he might, go off the rails. That kind of is like an almost all encompassing view
Mm-hmm.
that, you can say, look at this, damn you fat. Like Peter was talking about how his aunts would say, you're getting fat. Carl said it. I don't think I really gained weight until I was maybe like 7. So from first grade to second grade is when, I kind of became of size, so to speak. And I didn't realize it until I had a teacher say to me, Jeremy, you're supposed to grow up, not out. And I was like, what? And you
Mm-hmm.
don't think about it at 7 years old. I look at it now, I'm like, she should have got shot. Let me not say that. I'm from
Absolutely.
Chicago. I don't want people thinking that's how we solve all
I
our
was about
problems.
to
But
say, yo,
anyway,
that
Hey,
shot
fuck them.
town
They
popping
started
out.
it, man.
right.
I
I
don't
mean, that
care.
ain't some shit you say to a 7-year-old.
Hey, fuck
Yeah.
them. They started it.
And you can think whatever. I'll think all types of stuff. You don't say
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
But that is what was said. Now, there's always this thing about, it's not healthy. That's what people say. But they don't treat other unhealthy behaviors in that same way.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
I'll never
Mm-mm.
see somebody run
Not
up
at
to
all.
smokers. You go on your job, the people that smoke, they outside, they're huddled up together. Nobody run, you should stop smoking. Damn, smokestack, what are you out here doing this shit for? You know you're going to get lung cancer like that. Nobody does that. You just say they smoking, you let them go.
Mm-hmm.
You see fat folks eating, you shouldn't have all of that. The calories are too much for you. You know that, right? I'm just trying to enjoy my meal. I don't need you coming over here telling me about that. It's not
Mhm.
about health.
No,
It's
no.
about this is an accepted group of people that, I mean, you go back as far as you look, fat equals the comedic relief.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
And their fatness is what's funny about them.
yeah,
You know, if you look at all the way at Laurel and Hardy, they're both equally funny and silly, but Hardy has that extra because he's fat. Same
Mhm.
with
yeah.
Curly and the Three Stooges.
Mhm.
Um,
Homer Simpson,
Homer
Yeah.
Simpson,
Family Guy, Peter Griffin.
right? Peter
Yep.
Griffin.
I
It's
mean,
Yeah,
always that fat aspect.
yeah.
Be all the way back to the honeymooners, honestly.
Yeah.
It-
Oh, yeah. Alice
Honeymooners.
used to
Oh
go in
yeah.
on Ralph. I mean,
Every once in a while, they would talk about it with the skipper. Although he wasn't really fat, but I guess he was fat compared, for
to
the
the rest of
day.
the cast. Yeah,
Um, like you see a rerun who I read both he and Shirley Hemphill hated that they would be the butt of fat jokes.
yeah,
But that's something that they had to, and Fred Berry lost weight and they still would like pad him up so that they could do the fat jokes.
yeah. Never mind
And
the fact that Fred Berry was the most athletic person
That's
in
what
the
I was
cast.
just about to
what-
say. He was the most moving, grooving,
What's Rerun known
athletic
for?
one.
Rerun was
and I-
known for dancing. That's how he
Mhm.
got
Literally,
famous in real life. That's how Fred Berry got. He was one of the
yeah,
one of
original.
the first break dancers to ever
yeah.
break into fame.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And when you see him, you get out of breath.
Mhm.
He's jumping up and down on the floor, back up again, doing the splits, hopping here, hopping there, turning all around. And just like we said about Lizzo, Lizzo
hmm.
will dance all around the stage, sing, and play the flute, not be out of breath.
Yeah,
But everybody who critiques her for her size would be out of breath doing any one of those things.
Mhm.
and keep in mind now, she's doing all of these athletic dances and then stops and blows into a woodwind instrument.
Right.
Do you
And I,
understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
Sometimes she
Do you
don't even
understand what that
stop. She's
takes?
doing it while
Right,
blowing into the woodwind instrument.
right.
Exactly,
and
exactly.
that sort of brings
There's
me to
this.
another point about like the
Mhm.
healthcare assumption. Sorry to cut y'all off. It was just,
You good.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
but you know, very often the assessment of side, and one of the most terrifying terms in the world to me is morbid obesity,
Mm.
Yeah,
because that is an indicator that certain life-saving measures may be withheld from you
Oh yeah.
yeah.
based solely on a visual inspection of and I think that is one of the issue I wanted to bring up is like how the concern trolling really does not contribute in any way to actual health, because it is an assessment based on our least trustworthy sense. It's just about vision. And
Hmm.
Mhm.
and again, like these issues seem to always kind of coalesce, is that you have the colonial mentality, you have the quote unquote threat assessment by the dominant culture that says that you must be in some way neutralized, which I also think is part of the jokes and
The
the
ridicule,
the
yeah.
universal ridicule of
Mm.
fatness. But also, it does not take into account, what that person really is or isn't able to do, what their quality of life is or
Mhm.
isn't, based on
Hmm.
those things, or what they are actually doing to mitigate. Like I grew up in the era of the infamous H word, husky.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh Lord.
Ah,
Go
ah,
ahead, man.
and and like, unlike most people, like it was never a gradual thing. It was grades of big. Like
Mhm.
I was in kindergarten, I was already 4'7", sitting in a teacher's desk. um by the time I was sixth grade, I was already like 260. I had already passed. I couldn't get in the military in sixth grade
Hmm.
because I was already 6 feet 260. But in that sense though, it's like all of these assumptions were made about what you could or could not do, and it created an issue where, like, and I want to get further into it, like how your health outcomes could be compromised simply by how you looked. And I want to know,
Yeah.
people's experiences with it, and some of the things that you had to do had to deal with and how you countered it.
Again, this is just from work, and I'm, full disclosure, I am a candidate for bariatric surgery. I'm actually just in another couple of days, I'll be getting a surgery date for gastric sleeve bypass.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird how this is a all-encompassing thing. There's mental issues involved, there's emotional issues involved, there are physical issues involved. But everyone, unfortunately, in the healthcare industry, strangely enough, treats it as if it's cosmetic. And if whatever's happening, it's a side effect of my laziness. You know, I've law as sometimes what you have to do is you have to be your own personal advocate when you walk into your doctor's office. Because when you start smelling the BS coming or the bullshit coming down the pipe, you got to stop them and tell them, look, this ain't about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm here for. This is what I need your help with. And let them understand, look, man, you're not going to belittle me. I'm not going to sit here and let you belittle me so you can give me care. I'll go find me another provider if I have to. Um, you know, on one hand, as a patient, just having that staple. I went to the doctor just a couple of days ago. Um, just for follow up. And when you see that morbidly obese, when you already have see the weight on your scale, you have that sense of dysmorphia. You have that sense of, I'm already down. And when you see that morbidity, it's
Mm-hmm.
depressing.
Mm-hmm.
It's depressing. It's depressive. And they're not changing that. And your weight may have nothing to do with your health.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it may have nothing to do with the situation that brought you into the facility, but they'll have it listed right there on your list of concerns coming into the office. And I'm like, well, I know that there's a little bit of extra weight on me, but I'm here because I'm on my feet for 12 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the back pain comes from. My
Mm-hmm.
knee hurts. Yes, it plays a role, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't, there's not a problem with that, but it's happening because I'm also on my feet and picking up patients. And, Jeremy said it, and I know that others can attest to it. Pierre's on the thing. He's a PCT. I was started off as a CNA. You'll probably never find a line of employment that wants the big guy in the room as much as healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Patient falls, patient transporters, patient ADLs. If most of the people around you are not capable of lifting a person up off the floor should they fall, unless it's a team effort. But once you're in the room, you become a team of one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had it happen to me a million times. Combative patients,
Right.
you're going to be a team of one often. If it happens, they're going to call you.
And they're
Machinery
also
fell.
going to have you there as intimidation, as
Yeah,
muscle.
yeah.
Again,
You're
you're
the
the beast
muscle.
of burden.
Yeah, yeah. You
Call the
are.
bull. The bull will, excuse me, he'll come in and mow everybody
Yeah,
down. He'll push them out of the way. He'll lift it up.
and no one takes no one takes into account the physical toll.
Mm-hmm.
So it plays
Yes.
over into the healthcare aspect. It does,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
again, it's difficult to get decent care because people are finding they'll reach past whatever is actually affecting you
Mm-hmm.
to make it about your weight. And I could drop a ton of
Oh
pounds,
yeah,
but I'm
every
telling you,
time.
I'm still good. I could drop 300, I could drop 200 of the 300 pounds currently on my body. And I can tell you, I'm still going to have back pain. I'm still going to have bad joints and those issues because I'm working in a capitalist system where I'm on my feet from anywhere from 12 to 20 hours a day.
Mm.
And that's been my life now for the last 3 years.
Mm.
So I'm like, hey, man, it's not so much that I'm fat. It's capitalism killing me.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Carl, you
You know?
raised an interesting point, and it kind of falls into the next topic is how, you know, those perceptions kind of create a situation where it is almost prescribed that you don't deserve to be comfortable
Mm.
Yeah.
until after you've met this body ideal. You know, you may want to go in for arthroscopic surgery, like for some quality of life improvement, and the barrier to that is often until you lose weight, we can't do this
Oh
thing
yeah.
or that thing. And I wonder, does anybody else have similar experiences? And how, like, number one, how outlandish, like how what was the thing where what you were seeking and the weight justification were so far apart?
I know I went into the doctor once. I had a situation where it would always like go back and forth. One nostril would be obstructed and the other one would be like free flowing. And I was like, what is this? This can't be like normal. And the doctor's like, have you thought about losing weight? And I was like, ma'am, my nose isn't fat.
Right. Right.
It's not shifting fat from the
Right.
left nostril to the right. Could
Right.
I do with more cardio? Sure. That's not what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, because I've seen my own medical records where I'll go in for something totally unrelated. Number one thing at the top is weight. I've had injuries like I've injured my back before. It had nothing to do with weight. I was just lifting the wrong way, pivoting the wrong way when I'm holding something. Could be weight related. Based on what?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't. This
Right.
is before. They'll write the stuff down, and then they'll say this is what it could be, but then they'll talk to you afterward and come to a better understanding. But you can see what the initial thought process was, and that'll be on there. And I'm like, that can't be everything.
Mm-hmm.
If it plays a part, sure. Like what Carl was saying, yeah, weight could have something to do with back pain. But again, if he's on his feet for those many hours a day, even if he was half his weight now, if he was a third of his weight, it would still be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just make that assumption, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
happens. So I don't know. Maybe if I do lose weight, I'll never have another breathing obstruction problem again in life. I just have sincere doubts that had anything to do with anything. But that was the first thing, and I looked like, is this really a person who passed the medical exam and became a doctor? That doesn't make sense.
I can I'm sorry, go ahead, Dishonest. I didn't
Oh
want to
no,
cut you off.
I was just thinking about it. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Man, my most recent medical experience, I think I told you guys about this. It's gone next month makes it a year since it happened. Family, I was in a car accident on my day off and I got called into work. Somebody hit me broadside, T-boned me on a hot summer day. I'm on the side of the road waiting for the ambulance to come. They're taking my blood pressure. And the first question they asked me, am I taking something for, like, yeah, man, what's up with your blood pressure? Are you taking anything for blood? I mean, and look, in all truth and fairness, yes, you can sometimes attribute things to a person's weight. Yeah, and I don't doubt that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that I cannot stand to lose a couple of pounds or whatever, and that will positively affect my health. I grant you that. That's no big deal. But in that moment, in that space, at that
Mm-hmm.
time, I just got hit by a fucking car.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The
In the
fuck
hot
do you
sun.
think my high blood pressure came from?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think the high blood pressure came from? I just got hit by a car. Of course it's 150 over 111. My heart's pounding. My life flashed before my eyes. I was trying to figure out which ancestor I was going to be looking at
At the tree.
just a couple of seconds ago.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you over here asking me about my fucking blood pressure. Are you serious right now? My arm is bleeding. What do you think is happening? It's 99 degrees outside. Where do you think all of this is coming from? My heart is pumping like crazy. I just got hit by a car. I don't know what's going to happen to this car. I don't know about my insurance. I'm worried about something. My wife's on the phone. She's panicking like crazy. I mean, where do you think it came from? And the first thing for you to connect to is the fact that I'm big. Hell,
Right.
being fat is probably the fucking thing that saved my life.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Could be.
Yeah, I know it
You
has
know what I'm
saved my
saying?
life in a car
High
accident.
likelihood.
It's in all likelihood, but this is what I'm talking about. And then there's the racialized aspect of it. Remember, we're all people. This is all men of color talking, and 4 of us are black men. So we know now everything that gets all of the stigmas that are attached to just being black in the medical field. We already know about what most doctors are being trained, most medical professionals are being trained to think about that. We can tolerate pain more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need this type of treatment because we don't feel pain the same way white folk do or anyone who ain't black does. So let's transfer that over to this situation. What kind of treatment are we not getting?
Mm-hmm.
And they turn into heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
Let them
Mm-hmm.
turn into
Yep.
diabetes. Let them
Yep.
turn into end stage renal failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? What are they not treating us for that they will allow us to just get sicker and sicker and sicker until we've got no choice than to be hooked up to some machine and struggling through our sicker years or our later years in life? It is a very real thing. It's a
I think
very real thing in the medical field. So yeah, that there is a morbidity to obesity that ain't got shit to do with us.
I think
That's
also,
a real thing.
if we look at some of the things that obesity is the response to, you talk about like, cortisol creates stress, creates fat, not only fat storage, but also muscle bulking, and or how overexertion, and this wasn't even admitted until people started dropping dead in CrossFit, but like how overexertion directly contributes to protein buildup, which eventually leads to kidney failure. And how these things have been historically blamed on diet, on lifestyle, on bad genetics and things of that nature. And it has served to let like you say, the capitalism that is killing us off the hook.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that that is another part of it. It's like how anti-fatness is in some ways built into capitalism, and it kind of shows up in interesting ways. Like, I'm 6 feet over, been over 6 feet all my life. I have to buy a truck. There's almost no way around me getting into a regular car. Like a little thing, the fact that you pay a bit of a tax on your clothing. And I think that, some of it is the cost of this perception that I think is missed a lot of the times. And I think that, in terms of coping, we kind of have to, we're always looking at it is an added burden of mental bandwidth, and it's an added burden of movement, of finance. And sometimes, it creates this the situation where we're always having sort of a maneuver around our size, and so like, and I think that a lot of that is contributed to, and again, back to going to being the punchline of the jokes. Sometimes these things flow into each other to create like black fat people don't have a sense of style, but you don't look at the fact that I go to the store and it's full of things that look like they're made by Ahab the tent maker.
Yeah.
And I think that these things have a way of eroding the self perception, and I want to sort of get into that, like how, like number one, the effect that it does have, but at the same time, get into a discussion about like how those things are, we navigate those things, and what kind of pointers you can offer to people who are struggling with it. Because I think a lot of the time, these external pressures they're there and they get the majority of the attention. But at the same time, I think there has to be a focus on, solutions and things that we found that have worked. And I want to kind of get that kind of insight from, the panel.
Mm. I would say,
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Osan.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to get a clarity on. You said as far as solutions to a lot of the issues that we brought up. That's what you
Well,
said.
number one, some, like you said,
Mhm.
I was talking about the size tax, even a little things like having to buy the extra seat on Southwest, things like
Oh
that.
yeah.
But also, like what are some working solutions? Because I think that at the end of the day, that mental health effect is
Mhm.
what makes the experience of living as an outside person the most difficult, and how do you keep those voices out? How do you keep a decent or a baseline level of self-awareness, self-worth, and
Mhm.
quality of life? That's what I'm basically trying to say. Like
Yeah.
how are you creating a quality of life, not just withstanding the fact that you have this perceived flaw about you?
I gotta be honest. I'm sorry. Do you want to speak up, Osanas? You go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh no, you go right now. I'll chime in after you. I wanted to see what you
Um,
had to say.
I'll say in honesty, I'm not doing well with it, and I don't know what the solution is. I'll be honest with all of you. I'm dealing with it right now. To be fair, it hurts, and I gotta say this. 90% of I could live with my health, or sometimes the weird feelings that I might have about my weight affecting my health, if it's got nothing to do with me, you know? A lot of the shit that we get, being fat and all that stuff, or being a person of size, or however you want to call it, 90% of it ain't got shit to do with us, you know? And it hurts like hell when um I'm like anybody. I want to look good. I work hard, so I like to look good. And it hurts to walk into a store. I remember we were about to go on a trip to Universal Studios, my wife and my children, and we go to Old Navy. There's an Old Navy right next to us over here. And we all see some really nice stuff we want to buy, and everybody's buying stuff. And I start looking around. I'm looking through, and they've got nothing for me. And the hurt was so visible in my face because now everyone's got their something, but now I gotta, well, I was told to my face, well, hey man, y'all don't got no sizes bigger than this. Everything stopped at XL or large, you know?
Yep.
And I was like, hey man, y'all don't have any more options in this. I was like, well, yeah, I guess you can go online and look for it. And I'm standing in the store with my money in my hand, and they've not made any place for that. They've got no space for me. And the hurt was so visible in my face from it, the disappointment, that someone actually walked up to me and genuinely apologized for how everything came out. And it's just like, it's never us. It's never us. We're making peace with how we look. We're making peace with how we feel. And we're just trying to get through the world. And it's never us. It's somebody outside of us who always feels like they've got to not they've got to make us feel like we're not less than.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird. It's there is that size tax. There's no reason in the world why any garment, trust me, anything on Shine, Fashion Nova, Gap, Old Navy, all that stuff's being made in the same Malaysian factory. So there's no reason in the planet Earth why, that my pants should cost $40 when it's being sold to everybody else for 15.
Mm-hmm.
But yet somehow we have to deal with that. That there and I don't know how to deal with it. I'm gonna be honest. There are days when I can take it, and there are days when I can't. Because sometimes it just hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm almost 50. I have been alive for almost 5 decades. And I can remember every single time outside of myself where someone felt the need, some institution felt the need to hurt me just because I'm there. I didn't do anything. I didn't ask for it. And then you internalize it and it hurts. you know, you're like, I think my body's fine, but the world's telling me it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how many remixes they put out to I Need a Big Boy. You're lying. You're all lying.
And another issue with that, unfortunately, is that, well, fortunately for women, they are having more options for big women to look better.
Yes.
And not just put them in a moo and something that looks like it was made from a tablecloth. You've got your, like you say, your Fashion Over. Rihanna's Savage X Fenty, she's doing stuff there. She's got a few things like stuff for men, but it's mostly like sexy draws, and that's okay. But you can't wear sexy draws outside. Um, there's not as big a push for for men of size to have fashionable clothing. Something that we had touched on before we were kind of discussing this is when you look at companies like King Size or DXL, a lot of their stuff is online. Some of their stuff is okay. You might be able to piece together a decent outfit here or there, but for the most part, you look like Midwest soccer dad, and it's not necessarily a bad look to have sometimes. But sometimes you want to just go out and be a bit more stylish, be a bit more presentable. And if you're not a dad, if you're not even married, you just want to go out and wear something so you look attractive enough to maybe pull a chick from in the grocery store, wherever you might be. But you can't do that if everything looks like you're the neighbor from Home Improvement with Tim Allen.
Or you're about to storm the
Everything,
Capitol on January
plaid is
6th.
okay sometimes, but not all the time.
Right.
Everything can't look like just big bed sheet.
Yeah.
And they figured that out with women, which is extra hard because there are many more body shapes for women, I think, than it is for men. But they figured that out. And then they got you over on the man side looking like you just wander around Home Depot all day.
Yeah. There's an unspoken aspect to this that we as men have to take accountability for. There is no space for that because of how patriarchy works, I believe. We have to, we it's like this because of the things that we will not face. It's like this because of the things that we made it that way. It's men who decided that fat is ugly. That's just the reality of it. It's the racism that said any woman whose body is larger than a size 6 is unacceptable. And we've fostered that. That's part of this is just the chickens coming home to roost.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not making space for that. We're the ones making fat jokes. We're the ones who made the fat jokes. And though we can go back to every yo mama joke on the planet. Somebody ain't start with a lady. I can guarantee that. So it's one of those things where if we're not, and we say it, but this is how it tangibly affects us.
Mm-hmm.
This is how when we can say patriarchy is bad and the patriarchy affects toxic masculinity, affects men as well. But this is how it tangibly affects us in that we have not, there is going to be, and Black women deserve the most credit for this. There has been a place made for the acceptance of body and health at any size.
Mm-hmm.
They have created a safe space. Men have not, because a lot of us are still functioning, even us big dudes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go to any comment section, Lord help me, I don't know why, or listen to any male podcast, I don't fucking get it. But there are dudes that are as big as me critiquing the bodies of women like Beyonce or
Mm-hmm.
or if there's an ounce of a belly on them, or if they're perfectly fine. No, she ain't really my type. You know what I'm saying? I don't really like how Taraji P. Henson looking these days. How, fam? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just it. All of us now are victim to the situation because of the things we will not face.
Yeah.
So there's Lizzo made her space. Rihanna is like, listen, I'm a two-time mother. You
Mm-hmm.
gonna take this belly. And
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce
Mm-hmm.
flat out said it. Beyonce flat out said, I ain't getting into that shape again. I
Mm-hmm.
got 3 kids, man. I got 3 kids. I'm not getting into that shape again, and I'm not going to do that for y'all.
I,
You
I
feel
think
me?
also.
Mm.
So we have to dismantle that.
So,
Yeah.
Peter, I want to get your thoughts because you've been extremely quiet over there, and I don't want you to feel left out. Number one, but also, like I said, we have a much, much more similar experience, and so I want to make sure that the varied experience is included.
I mean, some of the thoughts that I had, you guys were discussing, uh, about that, how you go to see family and the food, and I was just thinking about my parents specifically of how they, I don't know the word, talked about it and by weight and why they did it, and was specific. I think specifically because my dad is diabetic, and he
Mm.
would worry that I would be diabetic if I was overweight.
Mm.
Um, well, I mean, I'm diabetic anyways, and it took me a long time to realize that, you know what, even if I was at an ideal health, I would probably be diabetic as it
Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and part of it's also, the the culture that we have here in the States, and the fast food is probably not helping either. But it's just either way, that took me a long time to get over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember just some thoughts I had was, I think it was middle school, and I was being bullied by a group of course, white kids, and specifically they would take my backpack and throw it around. This was like during gym time or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell my dad this, and he's like, "Well, they're doing that because you're fat." And I'm like, "No, because I'm freaking Asian. I'm different than
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And that can't be right because you're fat." And I specifically remember arguing about that, and that I don't really know what came of me, but it's looking back, it's kind of like I don't know. It was, it stuck with me for a long time.
Mm.
Like for a while, I didn't want to go home
Mm.
because it would always be the weight problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're fat, you need to lose weight, keep on lose weight, and I'm like, it got to the point where I wouldn't go home,
Mm.
and to visit my parents. Um, it just I didn't want to hear it. I
Yeah.
was making excuses, too busy, working, blah blah blah. And I confronted him about that, and we made peace. I think my parents and I made peace about that. It's not. It wasn't so much of the fact that I'm fat. Is more that you know, am I being healthy? Am I taking care of myself more? And
Mm.
it comes out. It's the result of if I look fat, then I must be unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
I think we all touch upon that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's, but I think my parents and I were kind of like they they don't they don't say that I'm fat. It's more like are they asking, am I taking care of myself?
Mm-hmm.
You know, seeing the doctor, doing your checkups, all that kind of, your numbers good, blah blah blah. Um, of course I, you know, say I am okay, and anyways, but just you know, this is some of the thoughts I had when you guys were
Mm-hmm.
just talking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just about my whole self perception about growing up. It was really hard for a while to date people, especially Asian women,
Mm-hmm.
because you know I'm a Asian, and I don't fit the perception of being like what I said, being the
Mm-hmm.
typical Asian dude,
Mm-hmm.
Asian size.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would kind of veer me off from any kind of you know dating for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But after a while, you just after a while, it's just I am who I am. I'm doing the best as I can, with what I got.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm at peace with that. I don't really care what I mean, I care what my parents say,
Mm-hmm.
and they want the best for me, but at the same time is how do I see myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm at peace with it, with that part of my life.
Hey, Peter, like, excellent comments, and I think they bring up. It started with one, but now it brings up three things that kind of I think are prevalent in the experience, and I want to get other people's thoughts on them. It's like, number one, do you think that a lot of the times the singling out of size comes as a result of perceived impotence in the face of other racist and classist institutions? Like Peter said, his parents told him that people were picking on him because he was fat, and not necessarily because he was an outgroup member who was trying to seek acceptance and you know um and excellence within the in-group society. And I've seen that happen several times in my experiences, and I was wondering, if that is something that is shared, and how how it has manifested itself with you guys.
Mm.
That's a deep question.
Yeah, that is deep.
Yeah, no, I had to sit down and got marinate on that for.
So Peter brought up some very interesting points about trusting attractiveness, like your perceived attractiveness and your attractiveness to potential partners, and also the difficulty that it creates in forming relationships. And I wanted to sort of get share my perspectives on that, share some of my experiences, but also get other people's experiences, how it affects them to this day, and some of the things that they've done to overcome it. Personally, I've always been the big kid, and like I've been vain, but not necessarily you know full of myself in a sense. And like I was very, very distrustful of people's attraction to me, especially given a lot of the perceptions that people had about people of size. And then like I was O lineman, so I wasn't in a glorified position. And I remember going when we got to college, it was funny because some reason our coach at the time decided that the offensive line would warm up in the end zone in front of the student section wearing white pants. And so it would always be me in the end zone with like people who knew me surrounding me. And I was always, the little heckling and catcalling. And I was always in the back of my mind wondering, all right, who's serious and who's not? Or you know, who's just making fun and like, and and not even necessarily realizing that there was an actual genuine fan club, there was an actual genuine attraction. Hell, my wife was in the stand at the time making the little jokes, but like knowing that like some of that was genuine, and like how much of that little voice that somebody planted a long, long time ago, nowhere near that situation, was speaking ill of the situation that you were in at the moment. And I wondered if people had similar situations, and like, what do you do to create a certain trust in that the signals are being generated that are genuine, and that the attraction and chemistry and things like that are actually to be trusted.
Well, yeah, for me, I used to always make a joke about how I would never get married. Like, I would say that because in the back of my mind, I had these trust issues with a lot of different relationships and how things would pan out, and you would have these arguments and these relationships, and somehow, some way, someone would slide in fat in the arguments and stuff. So, for a long time, I would say, oh, well, I'm just dating. I'm never gonna really. I'm pretty good just gonna be alone. And when I met my wife, it was different because the way we communicated was just something very different. Like, and then it made me start to like look inward, like, okay, what is your issue? Why don't you trust people? And then I started to unpack a lot of that stuff, like, okay, maybe you didn't never get married. Maybe you said you never was going to get married because you didn't have anyone that you thought respected you the way you respected them, or vice versa. So it's been a lot. I still have issues to this day about like attraction and how I navigate relationships. But I think if you find people that really don't, it's very hard to find people that have been unpacked a lot of things around weight and all that for you to really find comfort with these people. And so when I met my wife, I think that kind of changed a lot. But prior to that, I dated, and people, most of the time the woman would approach me, and then I would assess if I was interested. I never really was a person that approached women. I would assess if I wanted to date them or if I was interested in them after conversation. But I always just like the person, like, oh, you're attracted to me? Oh, okay, well, let me think about it. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm attracted to you too. So it was one of those things that a lot of that, I think weight had a lot to do with my confidence and all that. Now it's changed. I'm different, but I still have my issues.
Definitely.
I think a number of us, I know at least with John J. Carl and I, we embrace a little bit of the nerd culture, and that can kind of play against type too. If you are a big dude, you reading comic books.
Mm-hmm.
These are typically a lot of times not things that girls, women, you would think they would flop to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know when I was in junior high, early years in high school, I kind of was like, just keep to myself. I might have female friends, but I wasn't really going after anybody per se, because I'm like, I'm just doing my own thing. It's not really that big on my mind. I think, however, as I got older and I kind of thought about myself in terms of what type of person am I? Am I a good person? Am I good to others? Am I good to myself? And that gave me a better perspective on me. Not just, this fat ass dude walking around, but despite my size, just not even thinking about it, am I a good person? Am I somebody that good people would like? And if I'm not, if I'm being honest with myself, if I'm not, what do I need to change to be better?
Hmm.
Um, and at the same time, I still be like, well, sometimes I put on something it don't fit like I'm Idris Elba, but I'm still pulling it off. Sometimes women will talk to me, even even if you got a girlfriend, you got a wife or whatever, you might still feel like, is this real? You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
there's a voice in your head.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you all remember this old show back in like the early '90s called Herman's Head,
Yeah.
Hmm.
where
I remember
Yeah.
it.
it was this guy Herman. He had like different aspects of himself in his mind, and they would say things to him, and it was like anxiety and his intellect and things like that. There's always a voice in your head, probably from your childhood even, that's saying, nah, they probably don't, and you'll hear
Mm-hmm.
that. It's always in the back, but you'll
Yeah.
still hear it. It'll still play a part,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
you have to recognize that it's there, but also know, like really know that it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's kind of something I had to come to grips with. Like, I'm single now, but if I chose to date, it wouldn't be an issue,
Mm.
especially on my job where it's like
Mm-hmm.
mostly women, and they be coming at me. I'd be like, calm down, I'm not on that, slow it down. But if I wanted to, I could go out here and just start dating somebody right now. And I understand that about myself. Like I thought at one point the comic books would be an issue. I've never had a woman have a major issue with that.
Mm.
Sometimes they'll even like, one of the shortest relationships I had, the girl actually bought me comics for Sweetest Day. Um, and you would think that that would be something that goes against you. Women will go out and buy me clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm like some type of big ball and pimp or something like that, but if you are a good guy to yourself, to others, to
Mm-hmm.
women, they'll see that. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Especially when it's cold outside. Y'all down there where it's warm. Y'all don't understand. When it's cold, boy, they don't want to do nothing but be a little spoon all up in you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Dollar
we're
Right.
gonna get some
bills.
cuddling done.
No, there's a lot of truth to it. Uh, Words hurt, man. I've never
Yeah.
believed that adage of sticks and stone, words will never hurt me. I've never believed it because words hurt and they scar.
Hmm.
They scar you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can say that even now as a married man, and I've been in this is a long-term relationship by any metric. Um, I question my attraction to this day. It does something to you because it's hard for you to say, you know, that you think that you look good when society
Mhm.
is telling you
Mhm.
that you're ugly.
Mm-hmm.
How do you operate? How do you move in those spaces And yeah, I would love to, yeah, I would love to say that it had no effect on how I saw myself, regardless of what I dressed like. I think I've always tried to dress real good. Well, I grew up in the age of all the rappers with clothing lines, so I was woo-wear down to my shoes. So I was never really worried about that. But the man inside those clothes, yeah, man, it was hard to. It was hard to see the person. I would love to see myself through the eyes of someone who thought I was attractive. Because I can't say I agreed because somebody was telling that literally, you're so ugly, we don't have clothes for you. Or we don't even have a place for you to sit.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through that all the time, every day. I remember it's so messed up. I can barely remember the compliments an attractive girl or woman throughout my life may have said, and with the exception of whomever I've dated, but I can remember every messed up nickname
Mm-hmm.
applied to my
Mm-hmm.
weight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's hard. It's not easy, and it messes up your self-perception. You think you're not worthy, regardless of if you are or not. It sticks with you, and it hurts, man. And for me, I took on you race to self-deprecation. That's your icebreaker. You self-deprecate.
Mm-hmm.
So let's clear that out. Let's clear the elephant out of the room by calling yourself an elephant. Now we're good. Let's so it sticks with you. Um I still feel that way. I still do. I hear them. It's a constant fight. It's a constant fight. I don't know for everyone else. But for me, it's a constant daily struggle to block out those. It's like a Stephen King thing where they sometimes they come back
Hmm.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're in the back of your head. And for me, it's a daily thing. I'm getting dressed and I gotta silence the giggling. I gotta silence the tittering and the laughing. So I can believe you, my own wife, who I know loves me, when she says I look good or when she says I'm attractive. And I got to fight 40 years worth of voices in my head so I can hear her voice
Mm-hmm.
and try to see myself the way she sees me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got to think to myself, how many relationships did I sabotage myself in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I walked in the door believing that I wasn't good enough?
Mm-hmm.
I got to live with that.
Yeah.
This shit ain't just physical, man. This fucks with you on a mental level,
Yeah.
on an emotional level. So for anyone who ever gets to the other side of that, bless them, because I know for me it's a daily struggle. For me, it's a struggle. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. There's some times there've been years, literal years, where I have not seen myself. I just walk past my mirror because I can't bear to look at myself based on some shit somebody said to me when I was 10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not an easy path. And bless anybody who's able to make it through their day without having those things constantly affecting how they move through the world because the world told you you shouldn't be here in the first place.
Yeah.
So how could you find me attractive? How could you? How? What is it? Because I want to know. I genuinely want to know. Because everyone kept saying, "What did you see that the world chose to ignore?" And it's something that when you could. I mean, y'all tell me when somebody found you attractive, what's the first thing you thought in the back of your head? Man, you bullshitting. Am I lying?
I do know that for a good while, whenever I would talk to somebody, I don't know that I was actually just thinking about weight particularly, but I would be like, what is it that you see in me? What is it about me? And I think you know, now as you're saying it, that could have played some part in it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because why else would you ask the question? You just be like, well, shit, you do. And again, like you say, you've heard this for 40 years. I remember that woman said, I'm in the hallway. It's like other kids there. You're supposed to grow up, not out. And that probably has been in the back of my head. And, you know, I haven't had the self awareness enough to, you know, put two and two together. But on some level, you have to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, you know, yeah, that, and like you say, you got a whole wife and kids, three beautiful children, even the ones that look like you. So, I mean, you can't even, but again, that's saying something. That you can have a wife that you've been with for the better part of 2 decades. You all have children together. She completely loves you, and you still have your own doubts because the validation does not come from outside. It has to come from within.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not convinced of your own worth to others, even if they are, it's still not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you say, what other people have said, who were ignorant, who were uncaring, unfeeling, unthoughtful, and really, you know, not to say that it's to be accepted because it was expected, but I done said some shit that I probably shouldn't have about people. Shit, I done called people fatter than me, some shit that I wouldn't have liked if
Yeah.
somebody smaller than me would have said it to me. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that was how we grew up, and we have to understand that it wasn't good, so we can do better. So that, you know, future generations, the young ones now, can have a better understanding that just because somebody else called you a fat ass doesn't mean you can call somebody else a fat ass. Just because they did it to you doesn't mean you should do it to somebody else. Because these are the effects that it could have long term.
Mm-hmm.
Decades later. You just think, I just said some shit, you know, whatever, but the next day, and when they say it, a lot of times you act like it's no big deal
Mm-hmm.
because you have to put forth that facade so that they don't know that they hit a weak spot because then they'll exploit the fuck out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
And see,
it
like,
did happen.
you know, I think for me, I ain't even lie, I owe black women for like 50% at least of my self-esteem, in the sense that they would not allow me to sink into that that despair,
Mm-hmm.
into that state, and the fact that they were willing to beat me over the head with it, you know, in a sense, like you know, I think that having a sort of rural background, having coming from an area where, you know, something other than the quote unquote social norms or the mainstream norms had, you know, fertile ground to grow in, it contributed a lot. You know, those gentle nudges, um, you know, it's you know, they become profound. You know, like I think that, you know, I listen to everybody's experience, and I think about, you know, there have been times I've been at junctures of going in an opposite direction, and somebody came along and gave me a little nudge to keep me away from it, and gave me a little nudge. And you know, I think the ultimate thing for me was getting to a point where I had to ask, am I going to listen to society that is out there somewhere more intently than I listen to the people who are actually coming into contact with me, who are actually investing in me, who are actually trying to pull
Mm-hmm.
me out of this place? And you know, and then I also asked my question, you know, if everybody I encountered was attracted to me, how the hell would I deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
And you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think, you know, sometimes, and I think that, you know, I don't think that we're often taught that you would ever have a surplus. It's always like, you got one shot, you better get this girl, you better get that girl. And then like, to be attractive across the spectrum is something that we're not prepared to deal with. We're not prepared to trust it. And if we have any little nagging issues of esteem, like, they're going to speak louder than our reality sometimes, and I think that part of moving forward, we have to quiet ourselves as our worst critic, not necessarily our biggest critic. Like, it is always good to be introspective and self-critical, but we can't have defeat come in our own voices every time. And I think if there's anything to be gained, is that, taking life as it is I think is a luxury that if you're outsized or any sort of marginalized group, you don't have or have afforded to you, but it's something that we have to be sort of obstinate in making that space for ourselves, making that mental space, and creating solutions instead of wallowing. Finding our way. Finding something that makes our person more than our appearance.
Yeah.
So, does anyone have anything else to add to expound upon? Questions, comments, concerns?
No, at all.
I think we said a mouthful today.
I think we have, and I would like to pick up on this on the next episode to kind of expound on a few more issues and to sort of bring some different, bring more perspectives back to the table and continue a conversation that creates a healthy mental and physical space, and realizing that appearance does not equal health. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining us. Thank all of my panel members for your perspectives, for keeping the conversation going as you did. And we will continue this conversation on the next episode. And until then, you've been listening to eTalkRadio and ManTalk.